honest review of this Navifly. This is what they call the Blu-ray screen. I don't know why they call it Blu-ray. Blu-ray's a disc, not a screen, but it's what they do. They call it that. I just want to give an honest review of this. There has been some things that don't work, and I want to show you what the workarounds have been if you have been unfortunate enough to buy one of these like I have. First of all, about this was not cheap. I've only just got in the car, so this is a pretty good indication of what it's like to live with one of these. This was about, I'm in Australia, this was about $800 odd delivered. Certainly not cheap. That's the same price as most of the brand name options. The only reason I bought this is because I couldn't find a brand name option to fit the Mercedes C207. It's equivalent to a W212. It's a E250, early noughties E250 Mercedes. I'm sure these fit in all sorts of things, but the first thing I want to show you is right now it says there's data, 4G. I've got USB plugged in because they sent me an update that just literally never worked, but I want to be able to show you that. And it says I have reception on the network. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to music. I use Amazon Music, but it really doesn't matter. It's all going to be shit on this device, to be honest. There just isn't internet. About 50 to 60% of the time, nothing works on this. But it's not all nothing at once. So about maybe 30 or 40% of the time, maybe Bluetooth works. About a different 30 or 40% of the time, maybe the GPS works. About a different 30 or 40% of the time, the data works. And at the end of the day, having the likelihood of the things that you want to actually use all working at once, pretty much zero. I found the likelihood of getting into a car, and you can see what's going on, right? We get in a car, we want to be able to drive. This is what, a minute so far? The only reason there's a song showing up here is because I've entirely given up on relying on data, and I've saved one of the features of Amazon Music is you can save music for offline. That's the only thing that makes this barely livable. I've entirely given up on Bluetooth. I don't even connect my phone to this thing at all anymore. I just use the car's Bluetooth. The data, I used to try and use Apple CarPlay, but because Bluetooth doesn't work most of the time, Apple CarPlay doesn't work most of the time. So you can forget about using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It's just not going to work. So I put a SIM card in it. Well, it's no different. Most of the time it doesn't work either. So you can see a bit of a pattern here. I've had this thing for about 6 months, probably longer now, maybe 7 months. In that 7 months, I can't even tell you the volume of messages I sent back to Navifly, both through AliExpress, where I bought this thing, and also through a phone number on WhatsApp that they at some point messaged me on, and I've replied to them there. They entirely ignore, doesn't matter what I say is not working or what the problem is, they'll completely ignore it and suggest something totally irrelevant, pretty much just, I think, to stall you long enough to make you go away. They sent me an update that didn't work. So they sent me, after a few months of nagging them, they sent me basically the same update again. Still doesn't work. The biggest problem with the actual usability is not just the fact that most of this stuff just doesn't work most of the time. It's that you can't even get into the settings, right? So if I go into GPS, the luck of this is it's probably going to work at the moment, and it is. But don't worry about that. It works now. I'll start driving and suddenly it just won't work anymore. I thought maybe because I've got the GPS receiver, I originally had it inside, so I took it out and put it on top of the dash. I mean, that's clear view to the sky. I thought maybe that would make a difference. Trust me, it doesn't. It's just garbage. And here's the funny thing about this. If I went and bought an $89 Android phone, it would have GPS built in, it would have data built in. I don't need to go hooking up all these extra antennas for data and for GPS and all this ugly crap all over my car. I just would literally turn it on, and the likelihood of it working would probably be 100% of the time it would work. This thing, it almost never works in entirety. So in one of the usability things is there's no extra buttons around this thing. If it was an Android, you would expect there'd be a couple of buttons along the bottom. I said, well, there's not, right? So you got this little, and if you can see there's a thing there at the moment. Most of the time you can't see where that is, and that opens up. If you're trying to drive this car, you can see it's barely visible. If you're trying to drive this car, that little invisible touch point, you need to be able to use that while you're driving, and now that's really, really unsafe. But here's the thing, right? You can't actually get into Android settings on this. You can get into the Navifly settings, and it's very limited. But, you know, at some point, I was able to log into my Google account on this thing. Well, I can't get into it anymore. Right? There are no other settings. I can't get into the Android settings. At some point, I've been able to get into them because something popped up asking for something, and it took me into the Android settings. So at the moment, I can't use it. It doesn't work. You can see at the moment, it shows these things off my thing. If I adjust the right side, it's the left side that gets adjusted. See, the left side's changing. It's the right side I'm changing. So that's wrong too. You can see a bit of a theme. So the biggest way I've suggested of the default, it's got two, by default it comes with Google Maps. Google Maps most of the time, because there's no data and no internet, Google Maps doesn't normally work offline. And so most of the time it just has a blank screen. So I've all but given up on that. I changed it to using Waze. The advantage of Waze is it seems to automatically download the offload maps, and just for the record, I did try and download the offline maps on Google, but because the actual GPS is so inaccurate when it does connect, it's out usually most of the time. Google is basically unusable on this thing. If I go into the actual GPS test, at the moment we can see we've got some signal, but see how low they all are? You know what they responded to me? Most of the time you get nothing here at all. That's why I've got this thing out on top of the dash. I mean, it's just not with the positioning of that. You know what they suggested to me? They said, well, why don't you try swapping the data antenna and the GPS antenna? What the hell? Like that's going to do anything? Oh, well, that's like saying, oh, well, did you do some other random thing that can postpone you for a bit longer? It's just, my advice is, A, don't buy one. If you do buy one, I'm really sorry that you didn't see this earlier. My recommendation is to get Waze. At least it works more often. You can see here connecting. Most of the time it lives there, connecting like this. And if it can't connect to the internet, it'll be connecting to the satellite. And the satellite, you'll be driving along, it just stops working completely. Immensely annoying. And because it so inconsistently has data, you'll be driving along and all of a sudden, offline data, all of a sudden will connect to the data, but very briefly, and find everything, but as it tries to recalculate, but the data doesn't work anymore, so it can't actually recalculate. At the end of the day, it's a really nice quality screen. It's a shame, because actually this could be quite nice if it worked. Like, it's a glass screen, it's responsive most of the time. It looks nice. You know, if it actually was to work, then it would be nice. But you know what? It doesn't work. It's a total piece of garbage. Absolute junk. You can see here, that's your Bluetooth symbol. See, it's not working at the moment. Total garbage, right? There should be Bluetooth on this thing at the moment. It's just not. Don't buy this. Navifly, Navifly, I think it's spelt. Don't buy it. It's total garbage. The same thing goes under a few different brands on AliExpress. Again, this wasn't some cheap thing. I wasn't trying to cheap out on this. I actually thought by paying the price I paid that I was buying a better quality product. Unfortunately, I thought the only place I could get one is off AliExpress. I don't think it makes any difference where you buy one of these pieces of garbage. They're just the same. I think the only difference is going to be probably the software they put on it. My advice is don't do it. They, after 6 months or 7 months of battling with them, they said, we'll take it out and send it back to them. How? This is the center of the entire car. The other thing is that when this went in, see this big gap here, right? This doesn't line up anymore. You know why this doesn't line up anymore? Because there's this almighty ginormous adapter in the back that is, the cables aren't long enough to actually put it anywhere other than right behind this unit. And guess what? When you put it right behind this unit doesn't actually fit away anymore. So it took me most of an entire day to fit this thing, which is basically an adapter where you click it in. Right? That should not take the amount of time it took to actually put this garbage in. It's junk. Don't do it. My biggest advice is don't do it. Navifly, if you're watching this, eat a dick, quite frankly. I'm not taking this video down unless you absolutely rectify everything that's gone on and apologise. And even then, I'm not sure if it deserves to be taken down. Because, you know what, this is absolute garbage that I've put up with this junk for this long. You know, this is this USB. This is the update they sent me. You can see here, Ben's whatever, right? This is it. I've tried, it's all unzipped. I've also got the full file. It's all there. It just doesn't work. This update, see, there's the zip file. If I just unzip it and leave it in the folder, here's all the individual things. It doesn't recognize this update, and the update just doesn't work. I can't reiterate enough. This thing is absolute junk. If I can find an alternative, I've just given up on this thing. I'm going to take it out, put a new video of me putting a hammer through this piece of shit, and that will be, how I justify that little glimmer of enjoyment of destroying this piece of garbage. Will make the whole thing, that's the best I'll get out of it, and I accept that now. If I can find something, if someone else has got a recommendation for something better that fits a C207, it's a Mercedes-Benz E250 coupe. I think W212 is just the sedan version. Would probably fit this. I'm all ears. Please comment. I would love to work out what I can replace this junk with, and it needs to be reliable. I just don't want to get in a car and have you can't get in a car needing to drive somewhere and having this crap not working most of the time. You need to be able to focus on the road, or you can't be driving along and suddenly nothing works anymore. You're trying to navigate somewhere and it just doesn't work. You can't rely on it. It's garbage. Don't buy it. I regret buying it, and the least I can do is warn away others of what this piece of junk is like. If people want to see it, I'm happy to show you the scrolling video of what I've been through trying to deal with these guys for support. Has been probably the worst of it. If they just said to me, hey, we're shit, we don't support it, I would have gone, well, fuck, that was a mistake, and that would have been the end of it. But they've strung me along for months and months and months. So many messages trying to get support, where you because they're stringing you along, you persist with it, and that frustration is perhaps the worst of it all. I don't have the time to mess around with this junk. I just thought I was upgrading my Mercedes. I love the car. It's just a nice experience to be in this car, with the exception of this junk, and this lets the entire car down, and it's not the car's fault. So I will be taking this crap out. What I do next, I don't know. I need something reliable. I do need Bluetooth. Ideally, Bluetooth media streaming is probably the only real reason I actually upgraded this. And believe it or not, afterwards I found out it is in here, but I didn't get it to work very well. And that might just be because I didn't persist for long enough, because I thought once I bought this thing, I thought this was going to solve it. Anyway, 30 minutes of me rambling on. If that hasn't convinced you to not buy Navifly, then nothing will, and heaven help you. Anyway, comment below if you wish. I'm not a YouTube content producer. I don't make videos. I just wanted to do this to warn people against it. I'm interested to hear on other people's experiences. Comment below. Navifly came from AliExpress. Don't buy it.